Ladies, I need y'all to listen to me real good on this one. Because what I'm about to tell you ain't complicated. It's not about playing games, being toxic, or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about making one move, one powerful, soul-shaking move that will make any man sit down, reflect, and feel the weight of your absence like a ton of bricks. And that move is walking away with peace. See, most women think the way to get to a man is to scream, argue, prove your worth, remind him what you do, what you bring, how much you've tolerated. But let me tell you something. A man ain't gonna feel that. That's noise to him. But when you go quiet, when you gather your strength, pack your dignity, and walk away with your head high without begging, without crying, without threatening, that's the move. That's the one that hits different. Because men expect noise. They expect drama. They expect emotional reactions. But what they don't expect is growth. They don't expect that woman to one day realize that she ain't got to keep fixing broken pieces that ain't even hers. They don't expect her to stop calling, stop checking, stop explaining herself. And when she does that, when she actually leaves for good without bitterness, but with love for herself, that breaks him. Let me tell you why. Because that kind of woman is rare. She's the type that gives her all. She's loyal, supportive, rides through the storm with you. She sees potential in you before you even see it in yourself. But the moment she realizes you're not growing with her, that your energy is draining her instead of feeding her, she pivots. And that pivot, it cuts deep. It's not revenge, it's evolution. And men don't see it coming. You ever seen a man lose a good woman like that? I'm talking about a woman who was his biggest cheerleader, his safe place, his backbone. When she walks, that man starts to see clearly. All the things she used to say finally start to make sense, but now it's too late. Now he's sitting in silence, trying to replay every word, every moment, wondering how he fumbled someone who gave him everything without asking for much in return. Let me tell you something real. Men don't change because you cry. They don't change because you yell. They don't even change because you threaten to leave. They change when you actually do it. Quietly, calmly, completely. That's the wake-up call. That's the heartbreak. That's the earthquake. Because you just showed him what life looks like without your light. And baby, darkness don't feel good. He'll check his phone and realize the text stopped. He'll look around and realize the energy in the room shifted. He'll open his heart and realize there's an echo where your voice used to be. That's when it hits him. That's when he breaks. But don't you make that move out of spite. Do it out of self-love. Because when you walk away with grace, with your peace, and with no intention of coming back to something that kept breaking you, you don't just break him emotionally. You free yourself spiritually. In relationships, one of the most underestimated forms of power is silence. Not the silence that comes from passive-aggressive behavior or manipulation, but the silence that stems from peace, strength, and emotional clarity. When a woman chooses to walk away from a man, not with shouting, accusations, or a need to make him feel guilty, but with quiet, composed dignity, it triggers something in him that noise never could. This move isn't about being cold or indifferent. It's about valuing one's peace over the chaos of staying in something that no longer serves her. And the emotional impact of that kind of exit is deep. It's not just a goodbye. It's a statement that says, I'm done trying to make you see what I've been offering all along. Men, by nature or by societal conditioning, often tune out repetitive emotional expressions. The more a woman cries, pleads, or tries to convince him to change, the less he hears it. He becomes numb to the volume. He begins to expect the drama. He builds up a defense against the sound of distress. So in a way, arguing or venting ends up doing the opposite of what the woman hopes. It gives him an excuse to dismiss her pain. He chalks it up to mood swings, overreactions, or emotional weakness. But when she goes quiet, that's different. That silence pierces through the walls he built. Suddenly, there's no energy to feed off, no back and forth to distract him from the reality. Just silence. And that silence screams truth. When a woman walks away peacefully, without the fireworks, without the dramatic exit, she creates a space of reflection that he cannot escape. Because now, for the first time, he's left alone with his own thoughts. No messages, no calls, no explanations, just the void. And in that void, he starts to hear everything she once said. Every warning, every plea, every moment of love and support he took for granted. It all echoes louder than it ever did when she was speaking it. He starts to see that what she wanted wasn't too much. It was just basic respect, consistency, and effort. And by the time he truly sees it, she's already gone. This type of departure is powerful because it shows emotional maturity. It says, I loved you enough to fight for you, but I love myself enough to stop. There's a strength in knowing when to walk away, not because you don't care, but because you finally accepted that caring alone won't fix what's broken. That level of control and emotional intelligence hits a man differently. It challenges his ego, because deep down he thought you'd always be there. He thought no matter how much he slipped, you'd hold on. But now you've shown him you don't need to hold on to someone who isn't holding on to you.
The reason this breaks a man emotionally is because it's unexpected. Most men have been conditioned to expect noise from women when things fall apart. But when she goes silent, that's the curveball. That's when he realizes he lost more than just a woman. He lost a presence. He lost peace, comfort, loyalty, understanding, and unconditional love. And he didn't even notice it until it was no longer in his life. That moment of realization is heavy. It doesn't come with flames and chaos. It comes in the quiet moments. Late at night, alone, when he's scrolling through his phone and your name doesn't pop up. When he remembers how you used to check in, how you used to care, and now there's nothing. That's the kind of heartbreak that lingers. Not because you hurt him, but because he hurt himself by not valuing you when he had you. And it's important to understand that this move isn't meant to destroy him. That's not the goal. It's about protecting yourself. It's about choosing peace over repeated disappointment. It's about finally understanding that your worth isn't tied to how much pain you can endure for someone else. Walking away silently means you've grown beyond needing validation from the person who couldn't appreciate you. You've taken your power back, not through revenge or games, but through boundaries and self-respect. That is what makes this one move so emotionally impactful, because it's not reactive, it's intentional, and that's what makes a man sit with it longer than anything else. So when a woman stops explaining, stops asking, stops waiting, and just walks away with peace, it's not weakness, it's not giving up, it's wisdom, and it's often the first time he realizes how strong she truly was. Because anyone can scream when they're hurt, but it takes a different level of strength to heal in silence and leave in peace. And when a man witnesses that strength, it leaves a mark that no amount of noise ever could. When a good woman leaves a man without bitterness, her absence isn't just felt, it's haunting. She's the kind of woman who pours her love into the cracks, who shows up when she's tired, who listens when she's the one needing to be heard. She's consistent when he's confused, loyal when he's distant, and present when he's emotionally unavailable. She sacrifices more than she says, holds back more tears than he'll ever know, and keeps forgiving because she sees potential in a man even when he's lost sight of himself. But when that kind of woman finally walks away, not with rage, not with drama, but with quiet strength, she takes more than just herself with her. She takes the atmosphere, the energy, the emotional home he never thought he'd lose. And that right there is what leaves him broken in ways he can't explain. Most men don't realize what they have until it's gone. But when the woman they once leaned on, maybe even took for granted, walks away with peace and no bitterness, it triggers a level of emotional reflection that no argument or confrontation ever could. Why? Because he doesn't have the defense mechanisms for that. He doesn't know how to respond when she's not trying to fix it anymore. When she's not chasing closure. When she's not fighting for something he stopped showing up for. That's when the silence becomes louder than her presence ever was. Her absence becomes a mirror. He starts to look at his own reflection and question everything. How did I let her slip away? Why didn't I listen when she was trying to communicate with me? Why did I ignore her needs, her efforts, her pain? And the answers don't come easy. Because the truth is, he didn't think she'd ever leave. He thought her love was eternal, her patience infinite, her heart permanently open. But now that she's gone, now that her energy no longer surrounds him, the reality sets in. He lost someone who truly had his back. And it wasn't because she stopped loving him. It was because she started loving herself more. This kind of woman doesn't leave because she's bitter. She leaves because she's done begging for the bare minimum. She leaves because she realizes her softness was mistaken for weakness. She leaves because staying would mean betraying her own soul, just to keep someone else comfortable. And when she makes that move, she doesn't slam the door. She closes it gently with grace. And that's what haunts him the most. There were no final insults, no revenge posts, no attempts to make him jealous. Just peace. And peace in her absence makes him question everything he thought he knew about love. He might try to fill the space quickly. Maybe he'll distract himself, find someone new, act like he's unbothered. But deep down, he knows the truth. What he had was rare. What she gave was sacred. And now that she's gone, no one else fits the mold she left behind. No one else will listen the way she did. No one else will hold him with that same warmth, that same patience, that same depth. He might not admit it out loud. He might not say a word. But every time he remembers her, there's a weight in his chest, a quiet ache, a regret he carries, because he knows he had something beautiful, and he let it die slowly. And what makes this emotional blow even deeper is the fact that she didn't try to destroy him on the way out. There's a certain pain in being left by someone who still wishes you well, who still hopes you heal, grow, and evolve, even if it's without her. That kind of love is unforgettable. It's the kind that lingers, not because it was dramatic, but because it was pure. And he'll measure every woman who comes after her against a standard she never boasted about but quietly lived by. She was the emotional backbone of the relationship. She was the safe space. And now all of that is gone. Not in anger, but in silence. Not in hate, but in self-respect. She let go with love in her heart, but not a single plan to return. That decision shakes him to the core because deep down, he always believed she'd be there. He misjudged her endurance. He mistook her commitment for dependency. But what he failed to understand was that her loyalty had limits. And once he crossed them, there was no going back. So now he sits in a room that used to feel like home but now feels cold. He scrolls through old messages, hears her laugh in his memory, sees her smile in photos, and realizes just how much of his life she touched. And for the first time, he feels the weight of what he lost. Not because she screamed or cursed on her way out, but because she left so peacefully, so completely, so confidently, that it forced him to see her in a whole new light. And that light, it burns with the realization that he had something extraordinary, and now it's gone.
Men often don't realize a woman's true value until she's no longer in their life. It's not because they're heartless or incapable of love, but because they become so used to a good woman's presence that they begin to treat it like a constant. She's there when he's tired, when he's frustrated, when he needs encouragement, comfort, or just someone to be near. Her presence becomes woven into the fabric of his everyday life so seamlessly that he stops noticing the details. He stops noticing how she asks if he's eaten, how she reminds him of his worth when he doubts himself, how she picks up the pieces of his moods without complaint. But over time, the things he once appreciated become things he expects. And once expectations take over gratitude, neglect follows close behind. A good woman tries for as long as she can. She speaks softly. She explains her feelings. She gives chance after chance, not because she's weak or desperate, but because she genuinely believes in the man she loves. She sees the greatness in him even when he doesn't show it. She chooses him over and over again, even when he makes it hard. But eventually there comes a moment when something inside her shifts. That shift doesn't come after one big fight. It comes after 100 little disappointments, 1,000 moments where she felt like she didn't matter. And when that shift happens, she doesn't always say it out loud. She just starts detaching. Her words become fewer. Her affection softens. Her tone flattens. That's when the emotional clock starts ticking, though the man rarely notices it. It's not until she's gone that he begins to feel the void. Suddenly, the air around him feels heavier. The silence is louder. The little things she did, the texts, the check-ins, the laughter, are missing. And they don't just disappear. They haunt him. They replay in his mind at random hours. He remembers the way she looked at him with eyes full of belief, even when he doubted himself. He recalls the way her voice softened when she tried to calm his storms. He starts to recognize how she made him feel like more than he was, just by loving him the way she did. But now that she's not there, he's left with the realization that what he thought was ordinary was actually rare. Time does something cruel when a good woman walks away. It gives him space to reflect, but it doesn't give him the power to rewind. He sees things clearly now, but he can't go back and change how he showed up. The late night calls don't come anymore. The woman who used to forgive him before he even apologized has nothing left to say. The one who held him when he pushed her away has stopped reaching out. That kind of silence hits harder than any argument. It's not just the loss of a person, it's the loss of emotional safety, the loss of a bond that he never nurtured enough to protect. The irony is the things she once begged for, his time, his attention, his understanding, he's now willing to offer, but she no longer wants them. Not because she's bitter, but because she's healed. She's no longer in that emotional place where his presence could satisfy her needs. She's evolved. She's grown past needing to be understood by someone who refused to listen when it mattered. And that growth, that evolution, becomes a painful reminder to him of everything he could have had but didn't cherish. He starts to compare every new connection to her. He wonders why conversations don't flow the same, why laughter doesn't feel as deep, why he still feels unsettled. It's because what he lost wasn't just a partner, it was a soul connection. A woman who wanted to build with him, grow with him, love him in a way most only dream of. And realizing that too late is one of the hardest lessons a man can face. He learns that love isn't always loud and dramatic. Sometimes the deepest love is soft, consistent, and healing. And losing that kind of love doesn't hit all at once. It unfolds slowly, painfully, with every reminder of how much she gave and how little he appreciated. The truth is, people rarely value peace until they experience chaos. And she was his peace. She was the calm in his confusion, the home in his restlessness, the faith in his fear. When she walked away, she didn't take just herself. She took the stability he didn't know he needed until he was left with emotional noise he couldn't quiet. And now he sees her in places she's never been, hears her in songs she never sang, and misses a future he never fully committed to. By the time a man realizes the value of a good woman, she's often already rebuilt herself. She's not waiting for an apology. She's not looking back. She's moving forward, wiser, stronger, and more in love with herself than she ever was with him. And that's what truly breaks him. Not just that she's gone, but that she's better without him. Because the love she gave him was the kind of love that could have built an empire. But he only sees that now in her absence. And sometimes that regret is a weight he'll carry forever.
Leaving a relationship from a place of self-love rather than revenge is one of the most transformative and soul-defining choices a woman can make. It's not about causing pain, proving a point, or trying to gain the upper hand. It's about finally reaching a level of emotional maturity where you decide your peace is more valuable than holding on to someone who doesn't respect your worth. When a woman walks away not out of anger, but because she's choosing herself, she's not trying to break a man, she's simply tired of breaking herself to keep the relationship alive. That kind of exit doesn't just change her life, it leaves a mark on the man who once had access to her heart. There's a certain kind of woman who gives love deeply, fully, and unconditionally. She puts effort into the little things. She's emotionally available. She communicates. She compromises. And she's patient. Not because she doesn't have options, but because when she chooses someone, she does it with loyalty and intention. However, when she realizes that her love is being drained, disrespected, or dismissed, she begins to understand that staying is no longer a sign of love, it's a betrayal of self. And that's when she begins to shift her energy. No screaming, no guilt trips, no threats, just quiet boundaries, clear detachment, and eventually walking away without resentment. Choosing to leave from a place of self-love is powerful because it shows she has done the inner work. She's no longer addicted to the potential of what could be. She's no longer holding on to the version of him she created in her heart. She sees him for who he is, not who she hoped he would become. And when the blinders come off, clarity replaces confusion. She starts to see that love alone isn't enough. It needs to be matched with effort, respect, and growth. And when those are missing, she doesn't beg anymore. She detaches. And that detachment is done not to punish, but to protect. The man, on the other hand, may not feel the impact immediately. In fact, he may feel a false sense of freedom at first. He may believe that her silence means she's done fighting, and maybe he even thinks he won. But what he doesn't realize is that this kind of departure isn't temporary. She's not taking a break. She's not waiting for him to change. She's closing a chapter, not because she hates him, but because she finally loves herself enough to stop shrinking for someone else's comfort. And here's where the emotional impact truly begins. Because when she leaves without bitterness, she doesn't validate his ego with a scene. She doesn't feed the narrative that she's dramatic or unstable. She leaves with grace, and that grace becomes unbearable for him. Why? Because he can't blame her anymore. He can't twist the story into she was crazy or she was too emotional. She's simply left with peace, and that peace becomes a mirror he's forced to look into. In that mirror, he sees the version of himself she tolerated, the mistakes he ignored, the chances he wasted, and he knows deep down that she had every reason to explode. But she didn't. She just evolved. That kind of woman is unforgettable because her departure is rooted in self-respect, not vengeance. She doesn't need to expose him, drag his name, or make him feel small. She knows that real healing isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your time, your energy, and your future. And when she walks away in that mindset, she sets a new standard, not just for herself, but for how he views women moving forward. Every woman he meets after her will be measured against her emotional strength, her composure, and her grace. And no matter how far he goes or who he tries to replace her with, a part of him will always remember the one who left, not in anger, but in alignment with her growth. She doesn't need applause for leaving. She doesn't need validation. Her reward is her own peace. And in time, that peace brings her everything she once hoped to find in the relationship she left behind. Because when you walk away out of love for yourself, life responds differently. Doors open. Healing begins. Confidence is restored. You don't feel like a victim. You feel like a survivor. And most importantly, you stop trying to convince anyone of your value because you finally see it for yourself. So while it may seem like just another breakup to the outside world, to her, it's a rebirth. She's no longer bound by a relationship that dimmed her light. She's free. And for the man who lost her, the realization comes not from what she did, but from what she didn't do. She didn't scream. She didn't seek revenge. She just disappeared into a better version of herself. And that silence, that evolution, becomes the loudest message he's ever received. He may never admit it out loud, but he'll carry that lesson for life. Because being left by a woman who walked away in peace doesn't just break a man emotionally, it wakes him up in a way that nothing else can.